Hi there, Gary Jenkins here. If you like what you hear, please consider subscribing. Definitely click on the thumbs up because that will improve the analytics. I appreciate people who stop in to listen about my road from redundancy to recovery. Today I want to talk about a story that was in a book by Bob Proctor. You were born to be great. The truth of the matter is we were all born to be great. We were all born to be winners. We are winners just by the fact of how we show up on the planet right now. But what I am interested in telling you about is a story that Bob Proctor calls 333. Story basically begins that there had been a horrible tornado in the town of Barrie, Ontario. A lot of death, a lot of destruction. Two Bobs ended up coming into Barrie on the same evening, shortly after the tornadoes had hit. One coming from one direction, the other coming from the opposite. Bob Proctor got out and looked at the destruction and just wondered what could happen. What could anybody do to help out in this situation? The man coming from the opposite extreme was another Bob who owned radio stations in Ontario. And he looked around and he saw just so much destruction. He felt such pain for the people who lived there. Now, the second Bob was a student of Bob Proctor. Bob Proctor is a great author, presenter. He works with various laws like the law of attraction, the law of opposites, and he teaches these principles. He coaches people in business, he coaches people in life. He's just a force of nature, a real phenomenon, basically a self-educated man. Someday I wish I could grow up and be Bob Proctor. He's just that fantastic of a human being. Bob Proctor tells that when the second Bob went back to where his office was, he got his board together and basically had on a memo go out and say, look, we're going to meet Friday night and we're going to talk about a topic about this destruction in Barrie, Ontario. And when they all came in, he had on a flip chart written just three words, three letters, 333. So there was just three numbers, 333. And he told them, he said, what I want to do is raise $3 million within 3 hours, 3 business days from today. Well, the first thing that kind of pops out is impossible. You can't do it. He says, nope, we're not going to talk about what we can't do. We're only going to talk about what we can do. He says, I'm going to talk about, and we're going to talk about how we can raise $3 million within 3 hours, 3 days from now. Does anybody believe, or does anybody in this room not want to do something like that? Well, all the members of the board agreed that they would like to do something for the people in Barrie, and to raise $3 million within 3 hours and 3 days would be quite a phenomenal event. And he says, great, as long as we're all agreed we want to do something positive and humanitarian for these people, let's work on it. So he then just drew like a giant T under the numbers 333. And on that giant T, he put a gigantic X under the side of the T that he wrote down, what can't we do? And on the opposite side of that gigantic X, he put what we can do. And then he pointed to the giant X and says, we are not going to talk or give any energy to what we can't do. We only want to talk about what we can do to raise $3 million within 3 hours, 3 days from now, 3 business days from now. And of course, the first person comes up and says, we just can't do it. And he says, whenever anybody says something that would go over here where we've already X'd out, we're not going to discuss what we can't do. I need somebody in this room to yell next so we can move on to the next idea. Because eventually we'll quit thinking of the negative, we'll move on to the positive. You see, the second Bob was a student of the first Bob, Bob Proctor, who teaches about the law of opposites. There's an up, there must be a down. If there is a right side, there's got to be a left side. If there is sunshine, then there's got to be darkness. You know, it just has to have opposites in everything. And even in the destruction of Barrie, Ontario, there had to be good to be found there. There had to be an opposite. So what was the plan? They were going to work on this until they had come up with something that they could do 3 business days from now within 3 hours and raise $3 million. And the idea popped up and says, well, you know, we could just get radio stations all across Canada to take part in it. Well, of course, some people say, no, you can't do that. Somebody yelled, next! And the boss says, wait a minute, let's write down, we're going to get this broadcast all across Canada. He says, let's just say, because that is something we can do. Oh, how can we? We don't have a big enough radio station. Your stations that you own only are in Ontario. You don't have the rest, and we're not in a cooperative pact with anybody. You're talking about what we can't do, and the whole chorus in the room of everybody on the board said, next, because they were going to get rid of the negatives. And as the story progresses, they started saying, well, what if we could get these big radio personalities to participate? That would draw audiences across the country. Yes, let's do that. What about if we talk to other radio stations and see if they would be willing to participate in this fundraising activity? Yes. Well, the crux of the story is on the Tuesday night, the 3rd business day, for 3 hours, 50 radio stations across Canada, with 2 of the biggest name in radio in Canada chairing the evening, raised $3 million for the town of Barrie, Ontario. The seemingly impossible became possible because a group of men learned how to focus solely on what they can do and totally rejected the idea of anything that they couldn't do. In my road to recovery from my redundancy, I have found that this law of opposites is a powerful driving force. As I focus solely on what I can do and eliminate, even in the slightest thought processes of my mind, what I can't do, I am achieving great things. Let that be a clue to you. Be grateful for what you have and let your giant genius self focus on what you can do to make your life better, more improved, and to put yourself back into the swing of full employment, whether for somebody else or for yourself. Thank you for your time.